What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at Drova, a blend of, I would say, action RPG as well as CRPG, with obviously an isometric pixelated view. Though, realistically, I think probably the easiest way to describe this one would simply be as an isometric version of Gothic, the beloved cult classics from Piranha Bytes, now defunct. And it would seem to me, at least, that Drova probably took no small amount of healthy inspiration from that series and tried to do their own thing with it, as it shares no small amount of similarities, to be sure. But let's jump into that a little bit and talk about what you can expect from this title, which, by the way, just as an aside, it launched yesterday from the time of this video, though I wanted to cover Steam Next Fest first, even though they had sent me a review copy of this game like a day ahead of its actual release. With that in mind, though, I'm not planning a full review of this one anytime soon. I am very swamped over the next couple of weeks, but with any luck, when things slow down, I'll be able to swing back around for it. But to jump into it, Drova puts us in the role of a character who is, alongside their entire community, simply struggling to get by, only for the warriors of your clan, tribe, whatever, to find a rune-inscribed magic crystal that two druids of your village go off to attempt to utilize it to find the mystical land of Drova, which in this world seems to be a sort of mythical land of legends. And a short introductory quest later, and you find that very land, only to also find that it's not exactly what people had said it was. So this mystical land of wonder is really just more of another land of woe beset by divine and magical problems that you will have to get to the bottom of, which we're going to do by helping out the locals, joining one of two factions, which will lead to the story of the game playing out differently in either case. But in both cases, you'll have to get to grips with the world around you, learning things as you go, but again, very similar to Gothic here, both in terms of its introduction, that is to say, you're kind of just thrown out into the open as a weak character with very little explanation given, forced to find your way, but even down to things like the progression systems. So as your character levels up, you'll earn learning points that you'll then need to take to an instructor to actually learn anything. And even though it's isometric, this game also takes from Gothic little things like, say, upgrading your ability with swords and whatnot, directly applying to the combos you're able to pull off based on the timings of your swings. And that's to say nothing of the general atmosphere of a world that clearly does not want you there. So combat-wise, you're going to have to get to grips with it pretty quick, especially in terms of equipment and gear that you'll be able to throw on to enhance your abilities on top of what you'll need to learn from others. So you can go from someone who's just barely capable of swinging a stick and sword around maybe, to somebody who's actually capable of using some real weaponry and learning abilities as you go. Now this game does feature an ability system, which seems to encompass things like single-use scrolls and the like, but also more permanent abilities you can learn and then utilize in combat, such as an early game bleed ability. Now in order to use any sort of ability, regardless of it being consumable or a more permanently known one, you have to build focus in combat, which is done by hitting enemies, and then once you've reached a certain amount of focus, you can spend it on utilizing that ability in combat, which is important because the world of Drova is a pretty deadly place where a great many things want to kill you, not least of which the local wildlife that has run rampant, as Drova itself is beset by some sort of death fog that seems to have driven a lot of the local animals wild, alongside the divine beasts that initially helped you on your way here. Now, in addition to those systems, there's also the perhaps more expected things like little crafting systems that are going to help you do things like, of course, just actually craft useful stuff like traps and whatnot, but also help you cook meals and things to keep your hunger up, as that is something you'll have to watch, but it seems pretty basic, at least in its current implementation. But one other cool thing I wanted to mention for this particular game was that it features an almost sort of investigation system, where your character is able to sort of eyeball the environment and get a feel for it, which will do things like reveal footprints and other things you can investigate and look at in order to gather clues about whatever your current objective is or quest you might happen to be on. But you can also use this to actually find hidden things in the environment, such as little hidden lootables, that kind of thing, which is done by closely investigating via this system on an object until a highlight pops up for it, and that kind of felt more natural than I expected it to, though as a word of warning, you cannot investigate while your weapons are drawn because just like the Gothic series, you need to manually sheath and unsheath your weaponry as you go, as having them out disables you from interacting with a lot of other things. And again, when you put all of that together, I think you have a game that is the isometric equivalent, or at least is trying to be, something like Gothic in a really fun way, which is probably pretty notable these days, if only because Piranha Bytes shut down not all that long ago, and a lot of their games and RPG systems were very specific, so seeing somebody pick up those systems in that manner while also trying to bring it to new fronts might very well be welcome news for a niche, let's say, subsection of gamers, which does include me. I enjoyed Gothic and all of Piranha Bytes games really to some degree. And because of that, I like what they're doing here, and at some point in the future when things slow down and I am not absolutely slammed to the gills with games, I will likely double back to this one and try to review it for you guys. But I think that is pretty much going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this look at Drova, Forsaken Kin to give it its full name, but either way, I would love to know what you make of this one down in the comment section below, which naturally means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.